What it is! How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be reviewing Renfield, the newest horror comedy action movie. It's a lot of things. Who knows what we're going to talk about in this crazy episode? But I know some of the things. We're going to talk about cages and their Nicholases and their Holts as well. Talk about Aquafinas, not the water, the person. Although I guess they're singular, not plural. You know what? It don't even matter. The point is, if you want to hear what we have to say, sit back, relax, grab a snack, grab a beverage, and listen on in to the first ones to die.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast. My name is Jonathan, and I am here with Alex and Jerome. How are y'all doing today on this lovely day? Alex, how you doing?
You guys haunt my nightmares with your smiles. Not bad. I mentioned earlier that I'm a little bit in pain because I traded desks with my sister, and it's really nice. I got a standing desk now, so it goes up and down for my house because I do work from home a little bit, and I love it. It's been really great this week working from home, besides like the back pain. It's an introvert's dream. I love it so much. I like the people I work with. They're actually really cool and everything, but like I like being in silence sometimes and just doing my job. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I do feel like I'm missing out on gossip at the office, which I love. I love listening to. I'm not one of those people that get into the drama because I don't have the attention span for it, and I also don't care enough. But I love listening to other people's drama, their tea. I'll be like, who are we hating today? How do we feel about them? Like, usually they're cool in my book, but like, I need to know the vibe of this conversation. Let me hate who you hate. That's really the only thing I miss is a bit of the conversation. But like, this week, yeah, has been pretty chill and tame, and so like, I'm enjoying that wave of like calmness right now. I'm appreciating it. How are you doing, Jerome?
Yeah, I'm good. I was out last week because I was celebrating my mom's birthday with her in North Carolina. She had a great time. My girlfriend came with me. She had a great time. And all in all, it was good. It was good to just have a vacation and also go to a warmer climate. Being out in the South again, it's like you can wear your short sleeve shirts.
Isn't it humid though? Like,
Not right now. It's going to get humid later, though, this year, I'm sure. Once it hits the summertime, like full-on summer, and probably around like May, June. So we hit it just before the humid time, and I'm not going back until after the humid time. So that'll be great. But yeah, it was a good trip. It was fun. And then this week, after getting back, really just trying to get back to the swing of things. Finished up some shows. Mandalorian season finale just happened. It was dope. It was so good. It's been a rocky season. Jack Black and Lizzo it's being the highlight of how rocky it got. But it ended strong. It ended really strong. It ended really well. So it was a really solid season finale. Like really the last two episodes was really good. And then Abbott Elementary. I think this is the season finale. I don't know. This is like way more episodes than the last season.
Yeah, I heard that either the next episode or the one that just aired is the last episode.
This one seems like a season finale episode.
Yeah,
like,
it does. It had that vibe of like there was kind of like a finality when like the three people walk away.
I haven't seen it yet. Why did you just stop like that?
Because like I was contemplating about like saying something and like just being a jerk or like no, I think I'll let it go.
Also,
that's why
how have you not seen it yet, Jonathan? You're the like Abbott Elementary promotion guy. You were the one constantly telling us to watch it.
I'm very far behind. I need to catch up.
I think my favorite thing about that show is just Gregory's eyes all the time. He like keeps a very stumped, but his eyes are so expressive. The way they pop out sometimes. Like
for
I love
me,
it.
I'm like I can't watch the show without thinking about Jonathan. Not just because Jonathan is a huge fan of Abbott Elementary, but every time I see Gregory, I'm like, that's Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
You do look like him.
You look a lot like him. You're not as buff, but you're definitely like Gregory. But it's like you're his same height. Your style is similar. I'm like, that's just Jonathan. If he was a teacher.
Did you know?
And not, although you like more things than Gregory does, you enjoy life.
He's actually Tyler James Williams. He's probably, I know he probably doesn't look like it, but he's probably actually skinnier than me because he has Crohn's disease. I saw his Men's Health interview.
Really?
He has Crohn's disease, which is why he can't like put on a lot of weight. But the clothes that he wears, I feel like he wears them well, so that it.
Oh yeah.
You know what? He has broad shoulders, so that tends to make you look a little like wider and buffer. Yeah. So
well, I know for me,
shoulders.
like, because my while I was home, my because I've been skinny my entire life, always had a high metabolism, and still do to this day. And my aunt, while I was in the Carolinas, she was like, "Yeah, what was that? What you mad about it?"
Yes, that's exactly what it sounded like. Go on with your story. I don't need to explain myself.
But my aunt was she was like, "Wow, you really like filled out and stuff," and it's like. And since you were a kid, I remember when you were really small, you were really skinny, and now you're like you've put on more weight, and it's like in my head I'm like, no, it's not that I put on more weight, it's that I wear clothes that fit me. Like I figured out how to like after I left college, especially because I was watching old college videos that I filmed in film school, and I was like, God, what am I wearing? But it's all like baggy stuff or whatever, and it's like now the clothes I wear now fit me better. I look more stylish. And it's like when you're really skinny, there's ways to look fashionable and stylish. It's just you got to find the right clothes that fit your body type. Like you can't just wear just anything because either it looks like your clothes are swallowing you, or if they're too skinny, it makes you look like you need to eat, like like you're starving. And it's like there's a balance in there somewhere. And then, but again, at the same time, find what style you like. What you think you look good in, because everybody has their own style.
Yeah. You can say that with any size, because I think a lot of us, I think we're just also from that generation of like people who wore baggy clothes in high school. Because I looked at old photos and I'm like, who just let me wear clothes 3 times my size? How that's the reason I fell down. It wasn't because of any other issue. I just was tripping over my own clothes.
Last thing, I also finished playing Jedi Fallen Order recently. The next game is coming out, Jedi Survivor. It's awesome. I love it. It was so much fun being a Jedi, just walking around with your lightsaber. But it's really hard. It's not like you just whack things with a lightsaber the entire time. Like you gotta like time your strikes and everything. It's all. If I can compare it to anything, the gameplay is for anyone who's played Dark Souls, it's similar to that. But it's like to apply it to a real life situation, it's more like fencing, where like you gotta wait sometimes before you strike. In a video game, that's hard for some people, where it's like there's a patience to it and a skill to it to learn it. But regardless, fun game. Definitely had fun playing it. Can't wait for the second one to come out at the end of this month. So that's been my week. I've been kind of just surviving. It's like enjoying some entertainment and getting ready for next month when a lot of stuff comes out that I'm excited to see. So like movies and stuff.
What about you, Jonathan? Was it finally? Are you finally done with the?
Finally,
I mean, it has to be because you posted pictures and I saw you. I was like, look at science.
Yeah, but
Jonathan.
He also posted.
You look like a little kid trying to put together. like a little kid with his little science kid. Like, look, Mom, I'm doing science. Like, you sure are.
And then you accidentally make mustard gas.
Or open the Upside Down.
Yeah. Did you get like killed or something like in the Stranger Things experience? Were you like one of the scientists that got slaughtered by the Demogorgon?
No. Well, you can actually find out because the Stranger Things experience is coming next to Seattle.
Yeah, it's been promoting on my Instagram constantly, and I'm like, man, we should go.
TikTok. We should. We could be like, hey, maybe Jonathan did that.
Right. Maybe if I go up there, I can like.
Yeah, you could be on the other side.
That's about to happen.
Yeah, you'd be on the opposite side of it, like, so this is what it's like to be on this side of the glass.
I mean, that's what, when we were working at the movie theater, that's what we would do when we used to go out to actual theaters. We'd be like, this feels weird, just like being here.
Yeah, it's like we don't have to clean up after this movie experience. We could just leave.
It was also like, I know there's like after scene or after credits, like stuff, but like I also feel bad for staying for them because I
Right.
know all of them are just like waiting, be like, "You're my last showing. Get
Right.
out."
That was me today when I saw Renfield. The guy was standing right, like he came to the corner of the theater. He walked into the theater and stood at the corner where we would stand like 2 minutes before the movie ended and was like watching the end of the movie. I'm like, I remember those days when we would go in there. Oh, they said the line. Oh, we can go in now, and that's when it's about to end. And then we would wait patiently, knowing that there wasn't an after credit scene, but we would wait in the full theater.
Just staring at everybody being like, "This is like a war film. What are you doing? Why are you waiting? This is Dunkirk. There's no special scene you're gonna see. There's no Dunkirk 2."
But anyway,
but yeah, I guess spoil. Well, I'll just say it's it's not clear. Okay, to answer your question, Jerome.
I see.
But yeah, not to not spoil the Stranger Things.
Well, I imagine that it's a Stranger Things experience because it's supposed to be for all ages, right?
Yeah, but crazy stuff happens in it. Like the kids in the from the show, they're cussing up a storm in the, like, you see Vecna. It's
Okay.
But I feel like that's
scary.
how kids really are when they're away from like their parents. They like curse. I did
during the show, because it's like you go to the Rainbow Room and everything if you've seen the show, and multiple times when I've played that role as Dr. Alex Mathers, I'd say I had about like maybe 4 or 5 kids who cried during the whole thing, and their parents didn't do nothing about it. It would just be like, "Oh, it's okay." And then when that happens, we tell the stage management, like, after they leave the room, like, "Hey, there's a kid crying in the next room. You might want to," or whatever. But the parents, it's always about them. They're like, "Oh, I don't care if my kid is traumatized right now. I'm gonna enjoy Stranger Things now." So,
I mean, that's fair.
Well, don't bring your kids. Like, Stranger Things isn't a kid's show. Like, Stranger Things is very much for adults. Like, at the very least for teenagers. As far as the youngest crowd, like, it is not meant for kids.
So that's that. So hey, we may have to go. I don't know how long it'll be in Seattle. Probably, if it's the same, it'll be about 5-6 months. But that happened, and then we had a couple sittings for work, which is when we bring in the celebrity, and they get measured for their figure. So that was a lot of fun.
Can you tell us who's next to get their figure, or you do have to keep it hush hush?
I have to keep it hush hush.
Okay.
But you'll find out in due time.
Cool.
Suspense.
The suspense. And then also, I have been watching Beef on Netflix.
See, I've heard so much good things about it, and I just canceled my Netflix, so now I'm missing out on all these Netflix things.
Right.
Yeah, I might try to steal somebody's Netflix. I know who, though. So.
It's a show, but I thought it was a movie too when I first heard about it. I thought it was a movie, but it's a show. It's 10 episodes, starring no, I can't think of the name.
Ali Wong,
Steven Yeun and Ali Wong. Yeah, Steven Yeun and Ali Wong. They are great, and the show is great, and it's so unique. It's like a dark comedy kind of about these two. Like, the first episode, like right from jump, they get in a road rage kind of situation where they're like cussing at each other. It's an intense road rage scene, and then that is like the catalyst for the rest of the show, where they're just trying to like get revenge on each other, and it's pretty great and pretty like deep in a way, but yeah, it's really interesting, and it's made by A24, and I love A24, so
A24 is good.
Yeah, funny enough,
so yeah, that's been my week.
The trailer for this movie for Renfield. We'll talk about Renfield in a sec, audience. Just give me a second. But one of the trailers is a movie that I'm like contemplating watching because it just looks so good. Even though I'm not really into horror movies, especially not demon possession movies, but this one looks interesting. Is
The
Talk
Pope's
to Me?
Exorcist? Oh.
No, I could give two shits less about the Pope's Exorcist.
Whatever. I want to see it.
Oh
No. Talk to me. Talk to me looks so.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
heard
that
so
looks
much
good.
good things from because it's been making its way around the film festival circuits right now. Is that South by Southwest this past weekend, and then, or a couple weeks back, and then it was also at I think Toronto Film Festival too. So at TIFF. But it's been everywhere it's gone. People are just loving this movie and saying it's like one of the best horror movies coming out of this year, which I mostly want to see it because it's made by the same guys, the Raka Raka guys, if you remember them.
No.
They're the guys who used to do a lot of those like crazy stunts on YouTube, like stunt videos and stuff where they did like Ronald McDonald and like fighting all the mascots for food, and they did a Mortal Kombat. They always used to make the biggest thing was all their stunt videos were always so bloody. It was just like gallons upon gallons of blood. And I remember then they stopped making stuff for a while, and I was like, man, where did those guys go? And turns out this is what they were working on, is a movie from A24. So it's cool to see some YouTubers start out on YouTube, which all their stuff is always professional on YouTube even. So to see them grow to make a movie is pretty cool. So that was pretty awesome. Also, I forgot to mention Black Lady Sketch Show also started back up again this week. I only remembered it
Streaming
because
on
Jonathan,
HBO Max.
you saying played the role of Alex Mathers. The way you said it reminded me of there's like, because this season doesn't have, in the Black Lady Sketch Show, they always have this like through line that's supposed to be like the connective tissue of the season, of like the story that the ladies are going through or something. This season they're not doing that, but they instead have this new thing they're doing where like they'll have a sketch, and then after the sketch, one of the main stars will then be like, it's an actors, you know how they do like the actors round table or something like that type thing where an actor discusses their role. They're playing another character who played the role of that character in a sketch, in the sketch you just saw. And it's really interesting, and it's funny, it's cute, because it's really weird, because I'm like, okay, so you're playing a character who played a character in your sketch. It's really creative and interesting, and I'm like, there are only 2 episodes in so far in season 3, but it looks interesting.
It's like show within a show within a show.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Meta.
And also, funny enough, Jonathan, there's that chick Angel from Kev on Stage's podcast.
Yeah.
She's part of the cast now on Black Lady Sketch.
Oh, really? Like
She's,
like a main cast member?
Kind of. This year they're like, because they've been changing the cast constantly through seasons. Like the first season they had Quinta Brunson and another actress who's not there anymore, or Lacey Mosley, and then they weren't back for the second season. But for the second season, then they got Sky Townsend and somebody else, and then those 2 dropped, like, and then one of those other ladies, that's when Lacey Mosley was there. Then Lacey Mosley dropped off, and now it's just,
because she did iCarly, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's like as they get busy doing other projects, like the ladies just kind of bounce around, and so now it's just Robin Thede, Sky Townsend, Gabrielle Dennis, and then like they have 3 other ladies who are like, they say guest star, or they either say guest starring or co-starring, one of the 2. So they're not in every sketch, but they're in a good chunk of them. And so that chick Angel is one of those like extra stars who, she's not technically part of the main cast, but she's in a good bit of the sketches this season, as a supporting cast almost. But I was like, cool, I'm glad to see her doing work. I know Tony Baker was in the last season, like in a sketch, just real quick as like a guest star. So it's cool to see her, like, also that chick. I'm just glad to see all the Kev on Stage people do well and get work. So
same. I listen to their podcast every week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for our podcast, what we are doing this week is talking about Renfield. Renfield came out in theaters on April 14th, which was last week. By the time you're listening to this, 2 weeks ago. And Renfield, Dracula's henchman and inmate at the lunatic asylum for decades, longs for a life away from the Count, his various demands, and all of the bloodshed that comes with it. Renfield stars Nicholas Holt, Nicolas Cage, Awkwafina, Ben Schwartz, Shohreh Aghdashloo. I butchered that name. I apologize. Brandon Scott Jones, Adrian Martinez, Camille Chen, and others. So, if this is your first time listening to one of our reviews, basically, we'll first talk about our non-spoiler thoughts. We'll get into what we, if we like the movie, if we didn't, then we'll give you a warning and we'll go and deep dive into spoilers. So, Jerome, what did you think about Renfield? Overall thoughts.
Overall thoughts. I think this movie is a lot of fun. It definitely has like that comic book element to it, which is interesting because I don't know if you guys both know this. Who wrote this movie?
Robert Kirkman.
Yes, creator of The Walking Dead. So and it shows like this is very comic book the way it plays out. This made me think of like this would be a great like 3-issue or 4-issue little story about Renfield and Dracula and stuff. And so there's a lot of fun to be had in this movie. I think my only issue with it though is that it feels like it's the tone is kind of all over the place and the pacing of it is pretty bad. But only because it's because of the criminal stuff. All of the criminal stuff, like there's a whole crime organization subplot in here, and I know why it exists. It exists to provide plenty of action for the story. But I feel like this is a story that was interesting without it. All my favorite parts of the movie are with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Holt, who do a great job in the film playing Dracula and Renfield, and their interaction and this discussion of a narcissist and this codependent person in a pretty, an emotionally abusive relationship. Even though it is not necessarily, a romantic relationship, it still very much can mirror that type of relationship. And all that stuff was the most interesting. It was the most nuanced and great. And every time it was just that, I was like, I am glued to the screen. Like I am really interested in this relationship and what Renfield's going to do and, how he's going to find his inner strength, and all that stuff. And then we would go back to the criminal stuff, and I'd be like, "Oh my god!" Because it's not like what it is. It's that it's not that it's not anything you haven't seen before. Like that's I think the problem is that you go from this really interesting, nuanced, detailed like examination of an abusive relationship with this narcissistic boss to this very generic and by the numbers criminal story that you've seen in like 1,000 other movies. And so it's why the tone just feels all over the place for a lot of this movie. But performance wise, I think everyone does a pretty okay job. Nicholas Holt, Nicolas Cage, I think are doing the best, but Awkwafina is okay. I don't think she like drags the movie down, but at the same time, she doesn't do anything that I can't see another actress having done. But she handles the action really well, and she's pretty funny. Like she actually delivers she's funny in everything she does as far as comedy goes. So I expected nothing less from her, but she's great with her line delivery here. The only thing is I wish, because you look at like Jumanji: The Next Level, where Awkwafina really gets to play a character and you get to see her range. You didn't really get a lot of that here, so that's the only disappointment for me as far as having Awkwafina here. I feel like they could have done a lot more with her character specifically. But it is what it is. Overall, I thought the movie was fun. I don't think it's like a thing I'll watch again, or that it's bad. It's just not like an amazing film to me. I feel like there's a lot of stuff they left untouched that if they had done that part of it a lot more, it would have been a lot better for me personally.
Alex, how about you? Initial thoughts?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, hammy. I think that's the route they definitely wanted to go. I actually didn't know it was Awkwafina when I first saw her in the cop outfit. Didn't look like her to me.
Oh,
and
really?
Then I was like, afterwards, I was like, oh, that's Awkwafina. Yeah, I literally did not recognize her in the cop outfit. It's like, yeah. Anyway, but it was like, okay, it is a very campy and hammy movie, and like, because they're like, oh, it's a sequel to technically it's a sequel to the Dracula movie. You don't expect the same level of like horror and thriller as the original, or it once was, Dracula film. I like some of the new lore they put in that I don't recall ever reading in the original Dracula story. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a neat way to look at it. And Nicholas Holt does really well as Renfield. I will say he does remind me, the entire film, all I kept thinking was he reminds me of like 2010 Gerald Way. He got the emo hair going on.
Oh, Gerard Way.
Gerard Way. Yeah, like that's all I kept thinking about with his hair and everything.
They did a great job in his makeup, making him look very like dead. Like because my girlfriend Ari, she's like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Warm Bodies. I'm like, yeah, because he looks like he's still in that film with the makeup, making him look all gray and pale.
They do a great job making him look sickly all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was just a fun film. I do know I watched an interview with Nicolas Cage. And when he was doing Dracula, they asked him to be more Nicolas Cage. So like, they knew what they were trying to do with this film, and I think they succeeded with that. Where it's not supposed to be taken too seriously, you're supposed to enjoy it. I will agree that like sometimes the subplot of like the criminals and stuff took too much like light. Like it felt like it was too not a subplot but an actual plot, like squeezing its way into the film instead of having you focus on like Renfield and his toxic relationship with Dracula. So I think that's the only real issue I had with it. It was like, not bad. I don't think I'd see it again, but it is like a funny concept that I really did enjoy because it's, you never think about what happened to the humans that have been like enchanted with the like the monsters familiars. Or like, the the after story. So this was like an interesting way to look like that. What about you, Jonathan? What do you think?
I am going to echo what you guys both said. I thought it was fun. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, that was the most amazing movie I have ever seen in my life. I'm going to be thinking about this for the next week. I'll probably won't think about it after we end this episode. But I had a good time while I was watching it. And what was interesting to me when I was first watching it was the cast, the fact that they cast quite a bit of comedic actors, Awkwafina, Jason Schwartzman, or is it Jason Schwartz or Schwartz?
Ben Schwartz.
Who's Schwartz. Jason Schwartz? Who's Jason Schwartzman?
I have no clue.
Like Jason, I know who you're talking about. I don't think it's no. I don't think
Jason Stamos.
Not Jason. Are you thinking Jason Bateman?
Oh, Jason Schwartzman is an actor. Okay, he's. Because
I'm about to say, I think that is a name. It's just. He's not. He's in
Scott Pilgrim.
He's in Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, I'm about to say, I'm like, no, that is a person. He is in a movie this year. He's in the new dang it, what's his name? Wes Anderson movie.
Oh yeah, he's in a lot of Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Wes Anderson works with the same people.
Asteroid City.
He fits his Wes Anderson's aesthetic.
Yeah, like Jason Schwartzman, and he's also supposed to be. They're making a Scott Pilgrim anime. That's coming to Netflix, and it's all of the returning cast from the movie are coming back to do their voices for that.
Oh, he's also going to be in a movie with Sandra Oh and Awkwafina. So there we go. We found a connection. But
6 degrees of bacon.
But Ben Schwartz, who is also a comedic actor, they cast him in kind of like the one of the villain roles. That just there with the casting kind of set the tone for the film, and the fact that you had Nicolas Cage as Dracula and finding out that they wanted him to be more Nicolas Cage makes sense. I feel like Nicolas Cage now has this kind of, he's been typecast, and I feel like I haven't seen him a lot in stuff. Maybe because as a result of the typecasting, like maybe he's had sort of this attachment to his name that he isn't really like a serious actor nowadays.
Well, he's been doing a lot of indie stuff because he did like Pig and like Willy's Wonderland and Color Out of Space. Like he's been doing a lot of stuff that's been like, if you're looking for it, you'll find it. But if you're not, you don't know what he's doing.
Well, I think it has to do with he's being typecast almost as himself. So now with indie projects, they don't want Nicolas Cage. They want you to do the part.
Right. Like recently, like he was even in that movie where he played himself. that was probably the biggest thing that came out recently that he was in, other than this.
Yeah, but before that, it was Spider-Verse, probably. I think.
But I thought he did a great job in this. I thought he played a good Dracula. There were points where I was like, "Oh, is that even him?" Like where he would kind of like change look. I was like, "Oh, is that still Nicolas Cage? Is that still Dracula?" And he was even intimidating at times. Like there were times where he was genuinely like intimidating and scary. So I thought he did a good job, and I thought the cast did a great job as well. It was very camp. The movie was very like campy, like intentionally humorous. So much blood. Like when anyone would get like, when anyone's head would get stepped on or anything, like their head would explode like every single time without fail.
See, so we'll get into the blood and the spoilers for me because I had an issue with the blood, but not what you would think, not like how you would think.
But overall, I had a good time, and it was so much shorter than I imagined it would be. Like I was like, "Oh, it's over already."
Oh no, I thought it was the perfect length. I was like, "Yeah."
I wasn't. Don't get me wrong. I was not complaining about the length of the film, but I was like, "Oh, this seems like it's like I could see this as an episode of a series on Netflix about like movie monsters and stuff."
It had a very Netflixy vibe. Yes,
it did. Yeah, especially with all the neon lights. I was like, "What's with all the neon lights?" It makes this film look way. It reminded me of Bright in that way because of like all of the like how the lighting was in this movie. Because I'm like, there's a way to do neon lights and make them look cool. John Wick has perfected it. John Wick has perfected how to have neon lights in your movie and it still look like epic. But it's like it's very hard to do because it's like if there's too many, it looks either too 80s or too fake.
Yeah. But those are my initial thoughts. So now let's get into spoilers. Jerome, you just brought up a spoiler about the blood. Well, so go ahead. What are your thoughts?
The blood bothered me not because I had an issue with the blood because you know me. I like if you start out that way where it's like, listen, it's gonna be a bloody movie. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in for it. Let's go. I'm in for the ride. But my thing is, I'm like, I want some consistency because there are gallons of blood everywhere, but it's all CG blood. So it's like Renfield straight up stomps a dude, and it's just blood spurting up forever. And then but then when you look behind him, that body is perfectly intact. There's no wounds. Nothing, and he is perfectly clean. A little bit of spots of blood here and there, and I'm like, no. If you're gonna go camp, you gotta go the full mile. You've gotta have gallons of blood just caking everything. All of the walls should be painted red. That's one thing I will give Quentin Tarantino. He's like, yes, my movies are bloody, and yes, tomato sauce will be everywhere, but dang it, tomato sauce will be everywhere. The walls, the bed sheets, the floor, everything will be covered in blood. Because it's like, yeah, if it's that bloody, it might be ridiculous, but it's consistent. And with this movie, that bothered me so much. It's the same thing that, for me anyway, it's the same thing as like when a movie is out of sync with the voices, where the mouth is, and it's not an old kung fu movie. If it's a movie in the modern day, mouth moving, words not synced, and it's not a foreign language, I'm just like, no, it's not working for me. I can't do it.
What modern movies have been like that?
Oh, none that have gone to theaters or whatever. I'm just saying as an example. But that's just how it felt for me, where I was like, listen, if you're gonna have all of this blood and gore, cool, but then make sure that it exists in real life. If you're gonna do John Wick does CG blood, but when John Wick does CG blood, it's gunshots and stuff. So the blood is just like it's on the wall or something, and then it's a smaller surface area. Here, arms are getting ripped off, and like people are losing limbs, heads are getting knocked off. It needs to be gushing blood.
When he ripped, this was also my favorite scene, by the way, in the apartment complex corridor. That fight scene when he ripped dude's arms off and then started using them as nunchucks for the other guy.
Yeah, because it's like it was fun. It was funny. It was interesting. And I'm like, how much more fun would this be if there was actually blood flying everywhere? He's just getting it all over him. That's my thing. Where I'm like, I have no issue with the scene. It's just,
scenes like that and all the way that they use a random amount of blood at times, like a lot of it, reminded me of like those really crappy 80s horror film when they just started using like fake blood everywhere. It's like, no. Nobody bleeds this much. There's not enough blood.
Yeah, there's not enough blood in your body.
For what you're like doing. Like, there's no reason. There's nobody who has this amount of blood. That's what it felt like at times when they were like all this blood. I was like, who?
See, but Quentin Tarantino does that. He'll do that. Like when you watch Hateful Eight and like the shootout at the end of that movie. Like I'm like, there's no way you have enough blood in your body to still be having this whole monologue. There's no way. You're dead. Because there's blood everywhere.
Why are you still talking?
You should not be conscious. That was my only thing with the blood. But I loved the over the top action sequences though. I thought it was fun. It was fine. Like I was like, cool. He's knocking heads off and stuff.
Now that I think about it, this movie is like an 80s horror film in a modern day style. Mm-hmm. Now that like I'm replaying the movie in my head, I'm like, this is like I feel like a movie I would have seen like an 80s style. Yeah, it's a B film. It's got that vibe to it where you're like, you're really here not for the horror or the thriller. You're here to like have like make jokes about this movie. But like if anybody insults it, you're like, hey, screw you. It's a good movie. They all did their best. The acting was pretty good. Like all the actors did like really well for like a campy film this was. Like I was like, what I had mentioned the lore, I never thought about like Renfield still being alive at the end of Dracula or living 90 years later. I assumed he would die at a normal human age and then Dracula just got another servant.
If he gives him his power, like because I don't think in the original does he give Renfield power? I thought it's just Renfield just works for him.
I recall
Maybe that was the kicker. Maybe they had to add that for this film in order to make it make sense why he's alive and kicking.
Because I think I recall either from the book or the movie that basically he's turned Renfield into like what is a rodent. So he's like timid and squeaky and like eats bugs. That's all he needs to do to survive. Mm-hmm. So and he's like totally in his control. But it was nothing about like gaining powers or like having immortality, or anything like that. That's why I was like, there's this like new lore, like gaining powers when he eats bugs. That's nowhere in any book or movie or concept of Dracula or Renfield.
Yeah, but that's very comic booky. That's why it's like it makes sense to Robert Kirkman. It's like that's a very comic booky way of doing it, but it works. It's fun. I especially like, I think Nicolas Cage, I mean, he still definitely has his Nick Cage isms or whatever in there for sure in some of his performance. But I thought he was actually pretty decent, like pretty toned down, and even charming at times as Dracula. Like he really owned the role. I love especially that when they do the flashbacks and it's definitely like it's filmed to look like the Bela Lugosi Dracula movie, especially with the like that classic scene with the eyeline lights for Dracula. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like that's really cool and a great way visually to kind of tie the two movies together, even though technically they're not. But it's like that's a really neat way to kind of make it kind of seamless. I really appreciated that a lot, actually. But yeah, I liked Nick Cage as Dracula. I think he was because I mean I knew he would do a good job from the trailers. I was like, yeah, he looks like he's doing a good job. He looks like he's having fun playing the role, and he didn't disappoint. Like he was great as Dracula. That's why I love their scenes together, especially that scene when he's like he knows Renfield's lying, and he's just like, oh, you just like you were gonna get me my dinner later. Okay, cool, you're on your way. Got it. I'm just like, it's very much that thing of like when you've lied to your parent and they know you're lying, but they want to keep up the act to see what you say. What lie you come up with.
You know,
to
they
ass.
know, but nobody's willing to like break it and be like, tell the truth. So everybody knows, but you're like, yeah, sure. With Nicolas Cage, I will say, like, there are actors out there that like just they get typecast into themselves, and they end up just playing themselves in every role. Kind of like Ryan Reynolds. Every role he kind of plays is Ryan Reynolds. Mm-hmm. Nicolas Cage, although he gets typecast as himself, it is still different versions of like himself. He morphs how they want Nicolas Cage to be, but he morphs it into the character. So I will say that about Nicolas Cage. He gets a little campy and like he works off that vibe of like, I'm Nicolas Cage, I'm weird and blah blah blah. But like he really does still perform his role properly and like brings to life another character to. Even though they're like, we just want you to be Nicolas Cage as Dracula. He's like, no, I'm going to be Dracula with Nicolas Cage. That's like seasoning. I love how they made, when he had his like teeth out, they made him mumble. And like his talking was off.
Yeah.
I really like that because there's always that thought of like, so vampires, when you have your teeth out, do you have a lisp? Do you like talk funny? Like, because like you had that blockage. So they actually did that with him, and I'm like, oh, I like that little detail. Like it's a little detail, but I loved it because it answered like that question.
I love his teeth. I like the idea that he just has all of his teeth are sharp, but then he just has canines that just grow out longer for him to eat. Yeah. And I'm just like, those are always been my favorite type of vampires. I love even right now, I wrote a short comic book story for an anthology story with vampires, and my vampires are monsters. They're not just like people with like little baby canines. They're a little bit longer than they should be. I'm like, no, vampires should be monsters. They should have like super sharp teeth and look like creatures of the night. And so I love that Dracula in this. He looks like a creature of the night. Like if you see him coming, you would be freaked out and terrified. Especially when he's laughing and he shows all of his teeth and you're like, oh my God, like you're scared.
Any man in a cape you should run from. Just FYI. Any man in a cape, run.
He was scary. I also like, speaking of the cape, I also like the look of the cape. The fact that it was like leather, it was sleek. I was like, let me get one of those capes because I appreciated and the costume design in general. Like the costume design I felt was pretty cool, especially with I feel like Nicolas Cage, Dracula's costume was the main standout because it was really the only one that was outside of the normal clothing. But
I would really there's a scene in the trailers that I was really hoping would be in the movie. You saying that is like one of the black dudes is one of the criminals when they invade the hospital. He like looks at the cape. He's like, yeah, I'd rock this right here. This dope. And I'm like, that scene wasn't in the movie. And I was like, God damn it. That's one of the best jokes ever in the trailer. That's a really good scene. And that poor black dude, he probably told his mama and everything. He's like, Mom, I'm in a movie. I got a star role, everything. I was in the trailer. Then he go watch the movie.
Nowhere
his ass ain't in there.
There was
at least he got to be in the trailer though.
I guess that's true.
That reminds
put it on
me.
His Sorry.
There was a no. It just like it came back to me all of a sudden. Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon. We owned the DVD at the time, and like we watched the deleted scenes. All the deleted scenes had the same actress in them. They pretty much just cut out this one actress from the whole movie. Every deleted scene was her.
Pissed somebody off is what that is.
Yeah, she only got one like scene, and it was at the end of the movie. She was in like the newspaper clipping and a wedding announcement. She was standing next to like the guy she dumped. So it's like, and we were watching. We're like, oh man, she probably went to that premiere, and she's not in anything, not in a single scene, nothing. But that's just where it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, this line would have been perfect. Oh, you cut it out? Oh, man. That was probably going to be a good line, or like cut out a whole person. With the costume design, I like that although Dracula had like an old-timey style, it was still like modern where you wouldn't like draw too much attention to him.
Yeah, his suits were badass when he was wearing his suits and stuff.
Yeah, like in What We Do in the Shadows,
Mm-hmm.
they all dress like Victorian times, oldie times. So it's like, well, you're wearing this like straight up historical costume. Like, I'm gonna stare at you. Him, he was just like, you could walk past and be like, that's fashion, man. You got taste. You got taste and money. Like, I respect that.
This movie, I was reading, and it says this film was announced in 2014, focusing a story of the character Renfield in the classic, focusing on a story of the character Renfield in the classic monster universe. But the film entered development hell after the commercial failure of The Mummy in 2017.
Interesting.
Kirkman later
Okay.
came in and pitched a new version of the film to the studio, leaning more into the comedic aspects of the story, and the production rights were acquired by Skybound Entertainment.
That's interesting. This was going to be a dark
That makes me
universe
happy.
movie. Okay. Well,
That made me happy that they dropped it.
Yeah. This is way better this
We
way.
remember The Mummy. I didn't even watch it, and I remember it.
So, I watched it. No, let me rephrase that. I got half an hour in, and I had literally about 15 to 20 things I disliked already. That I couldn't. I stopped the movie. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I literally just can't. And it wasn't even Tom Cruise's face that was bothering me, although that was number one on the list. I just put that for any Tom Cruise movie. I don't like his face. I'll say that every day. But I'm really happy then that they put it like a stop to it, because this Dracula was definitely like better and more fun. And you know, I'm kind of tired of the dark universe where they make all these movies and shows into like serious dramas and darker versions, and it's like,
well,
have you
no,
seen the state of the world, man?
Like,
Make me laugh.
You remember The Mummy? Like, they were gonna probably make it like an action movie, but Dracula's like a badass or something, and then he's like, I don't know, like maybe Mina Harker gets kidnapped, Taken style, and Dracula's like, I have a particular set of skills from Transylvania. I'm going to suck your blood and kill your sons of bitches. Click. And then he just goes on an adventure. I don't know. but it's
I
just...
felt like there would have been like this really unnecessary dramatic scene of like, do you fear me? You should fear me. I'm a monster. It's like, yeah, dude, you're a monster. There's blood dripping everywhere from all the walls. And like, you have fucking fangs coming out of all your teeth. Yeah, I got that. I got you're not human and a monster. You didn't have to tell me.
But I just, I don't, I'm glad they made that decision to let Renfield just be its own thing. Because then it's like you have the freedom to do what you want, and you know, and play around with some ideas. Like, I don't think they would have went for this toxic relationship storyline if it was part of the shared universe, you know. But that being said, though, that's, I think, the best part of this movie, easily. Whenever it's Nicholas Holt and Nicolas Cage in that support group, which is easily, like, every time he went back to support group, it was it made me laugh every time. Just like all of the characters are great in that support group. Bob, Carol, Mark as the like head of the support group, like all of them were great. And so it's just, and I'm sure a lot of them are character actors, but they're really good. They were really good and really funny, and just had great delivery. Yeah.
I like that one line where they're like, what would you do? What would happen if you stopped feeding into Dracula's, like, if you stop caring to Dracula's needs? He's like, he would come into full power. He's like, right. That's a weird way to put it, but yes, correct.
Yeah,
he would come into full power.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. The support group, but it's like all that stuff, my favorite parts of the movie. Especially because I felt so bad for Renfield, especially that scene when he's getting like backed into a corner. He's trying to defend himself against Dracula, and it's just nothing's working. And it's like, you feel bad for him because it's like, yes, this is a very fantastical story involving Dracula and Renfield, but you know that in real life, there's a lot of people that can relate to that, whether that be an overbearing parent who is a narcissist and imposing their will on their children, to an abusive just relationship in which your partner is like that, or a boss Like sometimes it's a working relationship that's like that. So it's like it's a very relatable story that I'm sure a lot of people can connect to of that experience. And I'm glad that scene there's no powers. Nicolas Cage, like as Dracula, he doesn't use his powers or anything to overpower Renfield. All he uses is words, and that's enough, and that kind of helps like feed itself to the theme a lot of like you don't need like it doesn't take someone who's as powerful as Dracula to still be like this abusive person. All it takes is just someone with that type of personality, with that type of attitude,
And if you notice a lot throughout the film, he mainly uses his words with Renfield. That's his control over him. He never actually, or at least I don't really recall that much of him laying a hand or like hurting him. It was a lot of words, and
except
that's
when
where the power of his.
He does that one time. Well, in the beginning, he does that one time to scratch his belly and like and open his wound again to show his intestines. But that was more for
you're talking about Dracula to Renfield.
Yeah, Dracula to Renfield.
Oh, I thought you were talking Renfield to Dracula. I'm like, he busted his head open at the end.
No. Renfield was owed that. Yes, he was owed that moment.
But which the attack at the beginning though is very much just so they could show the plot point of Dracula's blood. I mean it's in character too when he strikes him, but it's just like they gotta show that somehow. Get that plot point in there. I will say there's no unused plot threads in this movie too, because I honestly forgot about the protection circle thing from the beginning until they mentioned it. Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah. That thing.
Which they probably wanted you to forget it so that it's like, oh yeah, it comes in clutch. Which the person can't get out, but other people can get in during the protection circle, I guess.
Well, I guess it traps evil. And since Dracula's evil, he can't leave, but they can walk in and out it because they're not evil.
The mob boss woman, played by Shorey Agdashlu, I believe it's how he
I've never known how to pronounce her name, but I love her as an actress. She's great in everything she's in, and her voice is just
so deep. It's
everything she plays husky. In. I'm like, it's her from her voice. She has just that husky, like, hello, Renfield. Like, you know what I mean? Like that type of voice.
She has a voice that's like made to be in like power. Like, there's always a scene where she's going to be in power because it's like, all right, that voice is like going to command me to do something and I'll probably listen.
Oh, she's going to be in an upcoming The Penguin series.
The weirdest thing she ever played for me.
The Penguin series, is that weird?
No.
Like the Batman Penguin.
The Batman Penguin.
Oh, I was like, Are they doing another Madagascar Penguin thing? I was like, if she wants to make people smile, go for it.
No, it's the Batman. It's a Batman like spin-off show.
Or
just starring Penguin. But she plays in The Punisher. In The Punisher, she just plays a mom. She's just a regular person. And I remember just being like, yeah, but you're like evil though, right? And then it's just the whole show goes, she's like, no, she's just a regular person. I'm like, how dare y'all hire this woman? Y'all hear her voice. She is clearly meant to play like bosses and witches and evil people. I hate to typecast her like that, but it's true.
But it's like somebody like, I'm scared of you, but I respect you. Like, like I'm a little like I respect you a lot, and like I respect how you got there, but like I'm a little terrified of you, so I'm especially gonna do what you say. It's kind of like when they had what was that actress's name in Bullet Train? The one who played in The Boys.
Karen Fukuhara.
Yeah, where they just had her as the like stewardess on the train. And like I didn't even register it because it was such a minor character, and I didn't pay attention that much. When you were like, you told me that, I was like, no, that wasn't her. I didn't believe it. It's like they got her, and she pushed the cart around. That was it. Such a waste.
Also, she's 70 years old.
No.
Yes.
Damn.
Wow. She looks great.
She does look great.
My mother.
She looks fantastic. Crazy. She's good. But again, it's like everything with the criminal stuff, It's not that the actors are bad. It's the plot. Like, it's like, because literally Ben Schwartz's character walks into Dracula's lair, and the second he does, I leaned over to my girlfriend and I was like, he's going to be the new Renfield. And she was like, yeah. Cause yeah, of course he is. Why? Because it's like, that for me is like the biggest thing about this movie is like all the criminal stuff is so boring. Because it's just all the stuff you've seen before. Like, no surprises at all. And it's like, and Ben Schwartz is like doing his best to make it funny because he's Ben Schwartz. But he can only do but so much.
There was also not really one moment where I thought Renfield was in real danger.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't as high stakes as I think it could have gotten.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, he was, even in situations where he was getting beaten up, he wasn't acting like he really got hit that hard. Where he was just like, oh yeah, I'm a little wobbly, but that's it. I'm like, no, dude, you should have a full-on concussion right now. Right. Where you just got smacked across the face. Yeah.
Well, also the criminal organization, like I was thinking about it because I saw the movie on Friday. So I've had like a whole day to think about it, and I was like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this isn't a crime family anymore. This is straight up Cobra, right? From G.I. Joe, because they have like access to NSA cameras. They literally bought off the entire police department. It's not just like a few dirty cops here and there. That's what crime families do. They get like a few cops. No, they have the whole precinct. The only person who's not on the take is Awkwafina. She's the only one.
It's kind of like everything was actually set in Gotham, not New Orleans.
Right.
That probably adds to the comic book. Yeah, comic book vibe.
The New Orleans Police Department. I'm assuming they like had to sign off on this portrayal of themselves for the movie. So I'm like, why would they sign off on this? This is just not helping the whole police
all they told them was that the New Orleans Police Department's in the movie. They didn't tell them what the role was. The whole precinct is corrupt. The whole system. It's just like, because when like they let him go after like he throws, because at first, the first time when he like runs through a DOI checkpoint, throws cocaine bricks at people, like whole bricks, not just a little bit. He's like whole bags of cocaine, and they're just like, and he's free to go. I'm like, there is no world. Listen, white people get away with a lot. But even this would be pushing it. Like, this would be pushing it. The police themselves would be like, we can't help you. Like, there's no way.
A gun was not pulled out on him. A gun was not pulled out on him. Awkwafina threw, what did she throw? Her shoe? A baton? Something at him? She threw something at him.
It was a baton.
It was a baton. I was just like, and then after that, I forget what the second one was, but it was also just this ridiculous crime scene. And it's like, are you kidding me?
No, the whole club, the whole club, right, literally club. Was, the one guy literally put everybody on the ground, either dead, injured, or like some form of non-conscious. Mask. Yeah. Some form of non-conscious, all these club goers, criminals, everything. And they're like, huh, you're a hero. Like, he just, no, not entirely.
Well, no, it's like Ben Schwartz. I'm talking about Ben Schwartz's character. He takes off his mask after taking it off in the club, shoots plenty of people. Definitely, like, tons of witnesses are like, yeah, I'll corroborate that story that, yeah, definitely that guy's a criminal. And the police are still like, and he's free to go. No. I know the story is that they're all corrupt. That's why he's free to go. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, even a corrupt police, like true corrupt police, they would draw the line there. They'd be like, look, we can't help you. How do we, like, if we let him go, it's going to be unbelievably obvious, like incredibly obvious that we are dirty. There is no way Internal Affairs is not going to arrest all of us if we do not arrest this man.
As long as there's no paper trail.
I'm just thinking last weekend, the NOPD, New Orleans Police Department, like the real one, they took a group trip. They're like, "Hey guys, movie's coming out. Let's take a trip. Let's go watch it."
Did they?
Midway through.
No, it would just be funny if they did.
No, yeah, that's right. I don't know if they actually did, but they probably did.
I hope it is. I really hope they do.
You know what it is? All of them were like, well, I don't know about y'all, but I'm Aquafina. Nah, bro, I'm Aquafina. Like, all the...
Like, we know what you did. You are not Aquafina.
It's just like, that's what I mean by, like, it's very clear that, like they wanted to have action in this story, and they didn't know how to do it without Renfield just, like, because, you know, you want Renfield to be a sympathetic character. And I do like that they address the fact that he's gathering, like, innocent people for Dracula to eat. But at the same time, they want you to like Renfield. So they're like, well, we got to have him, like, do something heroic. So people are like, no, but he's a good guy. And I'm like, and so that's why the criminals are in this story, clearly. But I don't know. I just wish there was more to them. You know, there's more to the criminals, so that way it doesn't feel like they're just they feel like a distraction as it is now in the script, as opposed to a part of the story. You know, because literally there's a part where
it would have been good if they like pulled back the criminal story a little bit, because like it did end up like going side to side with the original plot or the main plot, and it's like, no, we're trying to watch Renfield. Go back to that man. Why are we like looking at this crime family and everything they're doing being like making like no. Go back to the main character who we're supposed to be watching and sympathizing
Meanwhile,
for.
in Law and Order.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the police like, yeah, great. Back. Maybe it would have worked if the movie was like a little bit longer, but it was like only a 90-minute film.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's like, yeah, I just like, I wish or you know what it is? I wish the criminals had more character. At least then that would make up for them not really being around. They're just like generic bad guys. They're just like the stereotypical, we're criminals. Okay, and that's it. Like, okay, well.
See, I have to disagree with that. I have to disagree with that, because then that jumps into like, they actually didn't go to New Orleans. They went to Gotham. They have these crazy ass criminals. Something's going on. Like, there's something in the water. Why is this man named like Snake Man and wearing like 1,000 snakes on him? No.
Well, I don't need them to be like, now. I don't need them to be like the Joker, but just like, cause like the support group, for example, like the support group are characters. Like you got Bob, the rough and tough, like, dude who's it's like, who is abusing you? Look how big you are. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like, but it helps to perpetuate the idea like anybody can be in an abusive relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be like someone who's timid and meek. It could be also someone as big as Bob, who's like all muscled up and big dude with a beard and stuff like that, but he's having struggles too. Like, and even the little lines he gets, he has character. He has a personality. Like, I want to know more about Bob's life. I do not care about Ben Schwartz or his mom the entire time I was watching the movie. Although, I would have liked if just because the actress who's playing his mom, she's just such a good actress that she carries it, that her character has very little to do and has very little of, like, a personality. But she has so much charisma, she carries it. Ben Schwartz don't have that. He needs time to cook. And they didn't give him time to cook, to really get some real good zingers in there. The only one that was really funny was when he's like, yeah, I'm going to have power. Everyone feels like it's a lie. He's going to make you your slave. That's not true, because Master told me. Oh. And I'm like, exactly.
He says it.
Like, that was the only funny, that delivery was perfect, where he just thinks about it for a second. He's like, shoot, dang it. All right, you got me, but I'm still gonna kill you.
I after just now scrolling in the Wikipedia article a little more, there is more to the Mummy connection as well in the Dracula saga. In July 2014, Universal Pictures announced classic horror film properties, including the character of Count Dracula as part of the unified shared universe, blah, 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 which we already know. After negative reception of Dracula Untold in 2014, its connections to a unified series were downplayed and The Mummy 2017 was repositioned as the first film in the series. So The Mummy wasn't even the first film. It was Dracula Untold. But then after that I didn't know that. After that got like mixed reviews. They were like, oh, this ain't really the first film. It's The Mummy. This is the first film.
That was the one that everybody was talking about, because when they were talking about doing a dark universe, everyone was like, so is Dracula Untold a part of that? Because Dracula Untold left off with like this big thing where Dracula is kind of like a hero and he's in the modern day now. And people were like, so is that gonna tie in? Because that's kind of a Dracula movie made by you guys, like made by Universal. Is that gonna be a part of it? And Universal never answered. And there was rumors, I think, at that time that they were going to do a unified universe of monster movies. But I think that was going to be the start of it. Then when that didn't do as well as they had hoped, they were like, start over, do The Mummy. And then when that failed colossally, then they were like, you know what? Listen, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on us. Let's just stop. Let's just stop. We tried this 2 times now and we failed both. Like, we're done. But me personally, I think you failed because you're trying to make action movies. You know what I mean? Like, these movies work like as horror movies.
Yeah, or a horror movie, or if they did some sort of like
or dramas,
A24 style drama, where you took like a serious, you just took it into a serious route. I think that could possibly work.
Well, that's what me and Alex, like when I remember me and Alex worked The Mummy together, and we had pitched, like we were thinking about how we would do the dark universe, and both of us both came to the conclusion that like, no, don't do action movies, do horror or thriller-esque movies that are like serious. Like that's the way to do it, because that's what these movies were before. They weren't action movies then.
They were books and movies as horror, and it was not only that. The way, what was supposed to be after The Mummy? Because there was a way they were trying to tie it into The Mummy that you could tell this isn't going to be a good tie-in. Can't remember what it was. But even the route they were going of like which creature was appearing first was a bad route. And I think we also came up with a better way to have like each character connected. We're like, oh, they could do this and this and this. And you find out, oh, they're this. Oh, Jekyll and Hyde. Because I think the doctor in The Mummy was Dr. Hyde. I think
Bride of Frankenstein was supposed to be the next one. Because they'd already started casting and stuff for that one.
Weird pick for Bride of Frankenstein. Why would you jump to that? Why would you not do Frankenstein? But
right.
That's what I'm saying. They were kind of like over the map.
Yeah,
they're like,
why
we'll do this.
Oh, yeah. The film was part of... I'm looking at The Mummy right now. The film was part of Universal Pictures' Dark Universe, an attempt to create a modern cinematic universe based on the Universal Monster film series. A remake of Bride of Frankenstein with Angelina Jolie attached was originally scheduled for release on February 14th, 2019.
I remember her being cast, and that was big news, was that it was going to be Angelina Jolie as Bride of Frankenstein. And then Javier Bardem was going to be Frankenstein's monster.
On May 22nd, 2017, the official Dark Universe Twitter account posted an image with Tom Cruise, Sofia Boutella, Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem, and Russell Crowe standing together. The picture was revealed to be edited, with none of the cast of the Dark Universe having actually been together when it was taken. And this seems like this was just a mess.
It was a mess. Yeah. It was absolutely a mess from the very. I remember watching they did a whole featurette before The Mummy came out, explaining like everything they wanted to do. They wanted to do. Like, they basically wanted to make the Avengers. They wanted their own Avengers, but they were like, we can't do the Avengers because A, we don't own the characters, and B, Marvel's already doing it. So we want our own Avengers. And so they were like, we're going to do monsters, and we're going to have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde be like the head of this secret organization that like deals with monsters and stuff. And there's going to be references. And so they showed some of the scenes from The Mummy where you get to see the organization, where it's like they've got a skull of a vampire in the hands of the creature of the Black Lagoon and all this other stuff. And then they're like, and we're going to have all these movies. And then when they had that picture come out, it was like, yeah, we got Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man. Javier Bardem's going to be Frankenstein's monster. All these things. And I'm like, A, your first movie isn't out yet. Like, you don't even know if you're going to get more movies after this. And secondly, Who's asking for any of these? Who wants another Invisible Man movie? And let alone Johnny Depp to play him? Who's asking for more Frankenstein? Just a few years before that, we got I, Frankenstein, starring Aaron Eckhart as an action type hero Frankenstein. We'd already gotten that like a while ago.
I had forgotten about that film.
Yeah, and it was like bad. So nobody was asking for more like monster movie action movies. The last one that really was successful, in my opinion, Hellboy. But that's because Hellboy's an action franchise. It's a comic book with action in it. It lends itself to that. Like when they were like, yeah, we're trying to harken back to the original 1930s monsters movies. I'm like, okay, then why don't you make it like that? Dracula's a drama. Frankenstein's a drama. Invisible Man is a thriller movie. Like, these are all not action movies. They're not, because also, like, the biggest thing, I'm like, and then what? You make these movies, and then what are they going to do after that? Like, how are they going to cross over?
They're going to write new monsters.
Just for new monsters.
Well, because in my head, I'm like, are you have to fight somebody? Like, what? Like, what are they gonna do?
I think they saw the success of the Mummy with Brendan Fraser. They saw that. They're like, oh, it's action packed, but there were still a lot of scary scenes in that movie.
Yeah, I was scared when I was a kid. I did not watch The Mummy for a long time when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, when he roars and his mouth gets like huge, that's terrifying. Especially
the Mummy ride at Universal.
It's great.
Yeah, I grabbed you guys' hands because it's like the way it jerked back. I was like, nope, I didn't like that.
That ride was so. I don't think I've ever screamed higher.
Do you remember?
I thought it was fun. I loved it.
I love it. But do you remember when we went to the wax museum and they had the mummy section and I thought the bugs on the floor were real? And I jumped and scared you guys and scared the poor woman who was like right behind us.
I remember she was like recording on her selfie stick.
Yeah, she was like doing like social media shit and I just screamed. Look, I didn't know the mummy exhibit was like there and all I see is like bugs on I like panicked. I like jumped back.
Scared that poor lady.
That scared everybody. I scared myself.
But I think she ended up screaming louder than you.
But it was so, it like, you know, it's a thing where I was like, clearly y'all have no idea where you're going. You just want a universe, but you're not like putting the steps in place to make it like how it should be. And you're trying to make it something it's not. Like, you know what I mean? It's the same way where like when they made the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie, because that's what I thought they were going. Because it's like, do you guys know League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I'm aware of it. I have not seen it.
It's a comic book by Alan Moore, and then later they made a movie version of it. But it's essentially, Alan Moore wanted to make a story using all of the public domain literary figures in one story, and which he uses a lot. Like, the main cast is like The Invisible Man, Mina Harker, Alan Quartermain, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, that's the main cast, is like people you know. But there's characters that come out of nowhere, like the assistant to like Sherlock Holmes that's in a random one scene shows up in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Like, it's that level of detail where he just pulls all these characters from different
Anything that's
books.
free, he'll take it.
Yeah, like he took it to a whole extreme level, Alan. Which Alan Moore, I imagine, has read tons of books, but he takes a lot of characters. But the big thing is, like, you know, when they made the movie, they made it an act, like, because the story in the comics is like action-y, but that's not the point. Like, the point is to be more methodical and more thought out, like, and also super gross and dark. The movie tried to be more like, nah, it's an action movie, and all these characters are like superheroes, and they've been come together to fight this like Professor James Moriarty trying to start World War II, and it's like, no, I mean, sure, I guess. Like, and that's what I feel like the Dark Universe is trying to get to, where I was like, is that what y'all trying to get to? Because who are they fighting? Like, you're making it seem like these are superheroes. They're not superheroes. They're bad guys.
Yeah. I thought about that a lot. I'm like, why are all these monsters teaming up for? What are they trying to do? Because, like, I think there was a movie where I think it was the Mummy and Dracula met, and they just fought each other. Because that's what monsters do. They'll fight. They're not position to be like, I'm going to be the good guy. All of a sudden, change of heart. Because even in The Mummy with Tom Cruise, the mummy didn't turn good. The actual mummy didn't turn good.
Well, because
they made Tom Cruise into
Tom Cruise becomes quote unquote the mummy, and then he's a good
really
guy
he just
now.
gets the power. So all the monsters. That movie,
no one's watching that movie, and they shouldn't waste their time to do so anyway if they haven't seen it.
I have it pulled up on HBO Max right now. I'm sorry, Peacock.
No, you don't. Exactly. No, you don't.
One of the first lines of that film is, "We're not thieves. We're archaeologists." You're selling. Shut up. I hate that line. Shut up. That line pissed me off so bad. It was like one of the first things Tom Cruise said. We're not thieves. We're archaeologists. You pocketed
archaeologists
so much stuff.
are kind of thieves. So.
They're gravediggers. They're absolute gravediggers.
Yeah.
Just like the whole British Museum.
It's like, going back to this movie a little bit, it's like I could easily see if this was a part of the Dark Universe, Renfield, like they make Dracula and Renfield like Batman and Robin or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and
you know what I mean?
Right. Dracula would not have died at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
but they make it clear, like Renfield makes it clear, like Dracula could come back, even though it looks like he's dead.
Yeah, they leave the door open.
Ashes and be buried. Yeah, he's like Dracula. It'll take him a long time, but he could come back.
Does that mean Renfield still? Because at the end, yes, Dracula dies, and they like put him in cement. Some of his ass, they burn him, put him in cement, put him in the ocean or the sea or whatever. I don't know I don't know.
They just bury him like in a.
Yeah, I think they just like. Didn't
they throw some? I thought they threw some in water.
There was water. I forget where they put him. I don't know.
I think a lake or something, because I think New Orleans is landlocked. Swamps. Yeah. Swamps.
If it were me, I would bury his cement pieces like all around the world, just as a safe measure. Like now we know for a fact, even if he is starting to come together, it's gonna take him a real long time. Like it's gonna take at least like a couple centuries for him to come back together.
So my question with Dracula dying at the end. Does Renfield stay immortal? Is he still going to continue?
I guess so.
And then eating
exactly
bugs and have power?
I don't think Dracula can take back the power. I think once you have it, you have it. I mean, you could die, I guess, clearly, because Renfield does kill the other like familiars, but you can't like.
Also,
you can't like die just regularly. You know.
They kept like
a picture
of his blood, a picture of his blood.
So I guess he could keep himself all of that alive.
On the right, but I don't know if because remember they brought back all of the support group people.
Well, they're already back now, so now they're just alive. So
it's right, but I don't know.
But
if
he resurrected them
with the blood.
Yeah.
Well, they did. Yeah, they used the blood, and then they still have a picture at the end of the movie, like almost full picture. So they got plenty of blood left over for them to live probably at least Renfield to live a long time. Which I appreciated. I remember I was seeing the support group in the movie again, and I was like, they're alive, but they died. I was like, oh, right, the blood. My bad. I didn't think about that. But cool. I'm glad they're alive, which, again, great joke at the end where he's just like, yeah, thanks for bringing me back. And from the other side and seeing things that we can't unsee and knowing things that we can't unknow. It's like... And I'm like, because I always think about that whenever it's like people who are like, or stories where people constantly get revived, but they never define what heaven or hell looks like. And I'm like, that has to be like a haunting experience. First of all, dying has to be a haunting experience to experience death, then to experience whatever's on the other side, and then come back to life and just act like everything's normal. That's not possible. It's like, I have seen the other side. I know the answers that nobody knows, which is what happens after you die.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
That would mess you up. And on top of that, you can't tell anybody because so many people already have their minds made up of what happens. Like if you tell somebody, they'll be like, nah, I know the truth. God's up there. And it's like, if that's not true, you're just like, no, I'm telling you what it is. I've died.
Well, that's like the show, The Good Life. The Good Life.
Oh, The Good Place?
The Good Place. I love that show. That was a great show. It went for 4 seasons, which I think was perfect. They kept it, shorter than taking it to 10 or something. Where they're like, yeah, you go to the good place or the bad place. And, like, technically it's a little bit from every religion that you think and what you don't think. And, like, it's always changing. And I was like, that's actually, like, an interesting concept. And they only had one guy who ever really knew the truth. They're like, oh, yeah, I forget the character's name. He's like, he, like, got a bunch of mushrooms, a bunch of drugs, died for, like, 4 minutes, came over, saw everything, and went back to living his life. And, like, he was doing all this stuff because, like, we work on a point system. I have to get into the good place. And I was like, yeah, I could see that where he's, like, totally now devoted to only doing good because he saw the bad in the good place, or he saw where you get sorted. I don't know. You get sorted.
We saw where they filmed The Good Place on the Universal tour.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know what was also filmed on that same backlot? The Brandy Cinderella.
The new one? Or the old one?
No, the one from the 90s.
I'm excited. For the new one.
But anyway, final thoughts.
Yeah, because we're kind
Jerome.
of like I think we're kind of done talking about Renfield because there's not much else to say. Like realistically, like final thoughts. Honestly, this movie is like it's okay. You know, it's not awful. I didn't hate it. I had a fun time watching it. I just think there's like a lot of things that it needed a few more touch ups on the criminal organization side of it, because I think all the Nicolas Cage, like all the Dracula Renfield stuff, because that's their characters, all the Dracula Renfield stuff is perfect. That's exactly how it should feel. That's exactly what they should do with those characters, given the story and the comedy of this story and what they're trying to go with. Like that stuff is solid. So I think they nailed that. What they didn't nail was the criminal organization part and how it tied into the rest of the plot, without it feeling like it's just kind of taking away from everything that we love about Dracula and Renfield. So I feel like if that stuff was a little more tightened up and better, I would have liked the movie a lot more. Awkwafina's character really isn't like anything special. And that sucks to say, because I am sure Awkwafina had a fun time playing the role. She does a great job. But it's just a thing where I'm like, she's a forgettable character. I was like, honestly, if you weren't in this movie, I would not care. Your whole subplot with your sister and all that stuff, like it did not interest me at all. And I'm glad that by the end of it, Renfield, because they were starting to set up this romance between Renfield and Rebecca, and I'm glad they didn't go there with it. Near the end, instead, it's just like a really strong friendship that they have and this kinship that they have. And I'm like, good. That's kind of where it should be. Overall, if I had to give this movie a grade, I'd probably give it honestly like a C-. I think it's okay, but it's just that because that criminal part, the criminal organization thing takes up so much time, it weighs the movie down. Because it's like it's overwhelming for a lot of it, and I know it's there for action purposes and also for character purposes to make Renfield a little more of a character we want to root for. But if you're not gonna put as much time and energy into it as you do into like the stuff with him and Dracula, it's going to hurt the movie, in my opinion. So that's just that's my final thoughts.
Alex, final thoughts? Grade?
I think this movie's definitely like a B movie. This is a straight up 80s horror B movie where unnecessary amount of blood, but it kind of works with the way the film's going. Like I said, I think the subplot was actually like too much. I think they should have cut it down a little bit. Like maybe not bring in the whole organized family crime thing and involve the whole police department. Like scale it back a little bit to make it a little more believable, and maybe not like, okay, you did this much, now we need more context because you did too much. I do like how they displayed the toxic relationship. It showed that like it doesn't have to be physical. It can be just verbal and emotional. I think that's a great way to display it, because again, Dracula never actually really lays a hand on Renfield except for like the beginning scene, and like I think he does hit him near the end when they're fighting, but he doesn't do that throughout the film. Instead, he intimidates him. He backs him into corners. He like belittles him and stuff like that. And it's a great way to show verbal manipulation in that part. I think it is just a fun, campy movie, and it's again one of those movies you can't take too seriously. You can't read too much context in it. You can't be like, oh, there's a deeper meaning. No, it's about a toxic relationship, how you need to escape it, and they dressed it up as Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate they didn't take like the lore about him being immortal now and like bugs giving him power. That was like reasonable and not too a dramatic addition, and I like that because like a lot of times when you have movies from getting from the past or old books, they'll add these insane things like power or adjustment to be like, this is how they got it. That was nowhere in the book or the movies or anything. Why did you add that just to make this plot easier? No, that's stupid. And it was unnecessary, and it looks completely weird to the film. But this was subtle enough that like it connected to Renfield's original story in Dracula. So I think they did really good there. And the concept is just interesting to the modern day. And like I said, the costumes were amazing, even especially with Dracula, where it was old-timey, the cape and everything, but it still had a modern and fresh view where you're like, he could walk down the street and I'm like, he's just a fashionable guy. I like it. I respect that. When really he's, a cannibal. Are vampires cannibals? Does that count as cannibal?
I mean, they're undead, so technically they're not human anymore. Like, they're monsters now, so I guess not really.
I guess that would be the same concept with a zombie.
Yeah, like they're not people anymore. They're vampires, which are kind of different. Like, they're sentient beings, but not necessarily human.
Okay. Well, his version of cannibalism. But I enjoyed the film, and it's definitely like I think a solid like B horror film. This is something you're gonna watch and be like laugh at more than like be scared of in anything. What about you, Jonathan? What's your rating and what are your final thoughts?
Like I said, I probably won't think about this movie too much after we end this recording. But for what it was worth, I had a fun time with it. I enjoyed the action sequences. I enjoyed all of the blood in all of its excess. And it was a lot of it. Like I mentioned, I really liked the scene where they were fighting on the apartment and just like the campiness of it all, the craziness of it all. I'll probably give this movie maybe a C plus just because there were points where I became like disinterested in the movie, and for such a succinct 90-minute film, I don't think there should be too much room for that in those types of movies. Everything should, flow easily, like we were talking about with like the subplot and the main plot. I think we should have focused more on one central plot rather than going in different directions, because we are not working with a lot of time here, and we have to get through like the setup of who Renfield is in relation to Dracula, how they work together, what his gripe is, and I also would have appreciated knowing more of how Dracula was planning on taking over the world. He kind of just said, "I'm going to take over the world," and that was it. We just had to take him at his word. I wish we would have known like what his plan was to do that. So,
especially when like sunlight is your weakness. So
right.
That's a good point.
I mean, I always think that when vampires like, I'm gonna take over the world. I'm like, how? You like, no offense, but literally all anyone has to do is build a greenhouse to live in, and you will literally, and as long as they have shielding at nighttime, you will never get to them.
I mean, P. Diddy had somebody who used to follow him around with an umbrella. I'm sure Dracula could find somebody to do that. Just like a big ass umbrella just walking about.
A large box, dark
like
box.
Like a beach umbrella going on.
I mean, I don't know. In Blade, freaking Deacon Frost, those vampires wear sunscreen. Like they were like just caked on sunblock to walk around outside in the daytime. It's weird, but it might work. I don't know. Somebody needs to test the theory.
SPF 1000.
Right. But yeah, I thought the movie was average. It was a fun time for what it was worth. And yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, audience, comment below. Tell us how you feel. about Renfield.
Yes.
If you've seen it, if you haven't seen it, are you excited to watch it? Comment below. Tell us about it.
Yeah. And now, where can we find you on social media, Jerome?
Socials. You can find me at Jerome Rhett at RoboZoo Media. This is what we do, all right? We say it all the time. You can find me at RoboZoo Media at Jerome_the_show, and also at Not Jerome Rhett on Instagram. Check out all the stuff I'm working on. And also be on the lookout next month. DC New Talent Showcase Milestone Initiative comes out May 30th. It's featuring my story, but also other stories from the Milestone Initiative cohort, as well as some of their art as well. And also check out stuff like DC Power #1, DC Pride, if you can find it, and some other stories that also feature some of the Milestone Initiative cohort as well to go check out. In fact, the new Cyborg is written by a friend of mine, Morgan, who's part of the Milestone Initiative. He's great. Pick up Cyborg #1 and the Dawn of DC current run of books. And if you want to check out more of what we've got going on as far as, other extra content that you can't pick up on the streaming site, stuff like gaming videos, mini reviews, blogs, book reviews, all types of stuff, go check out the First Ones to Die YouTube channel and find some stuff to look at there. In fact, we got a bunch of mini reviews coming. I just reviewed I just filmed a batch of them before I went on vacation last week, so I got to edit those. But those are coming, so be on the lookout for reviews of Swarm, Last of Us, and John Wick 4. So those mini reviews are coming at you soon. Alex, where can people find you?
You can find me at Alex and Nobody on Instagram and on TikTok, and the podcast TikTok, The First One to Die, where I post little clips of the episode, what we may be watching, and just random things I like to watch when I'm bored or a little high. And also on the YouTube, watch out for the book review me and Jonathan did. Yeah, the book review me and Jonathan did of Killers of a Certain Age, where women in their 60s. Is it their 60s?
Yeah, their 60s.
Yeah, it's a interesting book and more murder for all those who enjoy it. So, nice. And what about you, Jonathan? Where are we finding you?
You can find me at Jonathan Keys on Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you please. You can also follow us at The First Ones to Die on all the social channels. You can email us, thefirstones2die@gmail.com. We'd love to get your feedback. Speaking of feedback, if you're listening to us on audio, feel free to give us 5 stars and leave a review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hey, what's up? Go ahead and subscribe to this video, or like this video and subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment.
We're all tired,
on your
y'all.
way out.
It's
right.
You don't understand.
It's been a long week.
Next week, tune in. It's back. It's finally back, y'all. It's been a long time this year since we've been actually busy this whole top of this year. But Trivia 7 finally is happening. We got Trivia 7 coming. We may have a special guest host as doing the questions. Last time we had Lauren. Who knows who it's going to be this time around. But there's only one way to find out. Tune in next week and check out Trivia 7. I don't know what it's going to be called yet because we've already done trivia, the trilogy, the saga, the franchise continues. I forget what Trivia 6 was called. I think I also accidentally named it the saga again. We'll change it to something else. Trivia 7 will be... Oh, no, I know what it is. I remember. Last time we talked, we said Trivia 7 would be called Too Fast, Too Trivia. So...
God, we're dorks. Sometimes I just hear ourselves and I'm like,
Here's the thing. We didn't agree on that. I just said that.
Okay, so you're a dork. All right. It's just Jerome. Okay. I got worried for myself for a second.
It's still going to be named that, all right? It's still going to be that.
As long as I am as I am.
We're all 2 for 6, so
it's true.
Wins this one.
It's true. This will be the tiebreaker.
The current leader.
Yeah. Current trivia champ though is Alex.
Current champ is Alex.
Last winner.
Mm-hmm. You're the reigning champ.
Jaws. Which led us to watch Jaws, so everybody go check out that review too. Because I love my sharks. My little sharky sharks. But anyway, tune in next week for Trivia 7, whatever it be named. See us argue.
Called Too Fast, Too Trivia. We did.
I thought that was Trivia 6.
No, Trivia 6 was, I think, also called The Saga accidentally. We'll have to call it something else. We'll have to figure out a new name.
Anyway, tune in next week. We will hopefully see y'all there and maybe have a special guest like Jerome said. But as for now, have a good evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this.